We could see a number of technologies that are maturing over time, which includes the blockchain, including both the distributed ledgers as well as the public blockchain. We are seeing renowned spark in AI because of the generative AI thing. ChatGPT has changed the way things are working across and empowering a number of individuals without any understanding of the world to do amazing things. Then we have a discipline of Internet of Things. It is also evolving at its pace. There is a discipline of Metaverse, which I think the previous speaker also put some highlight on, that more realistic 3D experiences are happening across within this Metaverse domain. So the way we interact with the computing environment and with each other is going to change. Then there is also a quantum computing discipline, which is in its infancy, but has a potential to do a lot of things, right? So these are some different technologies which are happening, but are they happening in silos? Is there any connection, or how one technology is going to affect the other? Is there any convergence? That is the topic I would like to specify within this particular session. Now, my name is Ali Safri. I am a CTO of Avanza Innovations. And interestingly, we take care of all the nascent and emerging technologies. So we work in AI, we work in blockchain, we work in Internet of Things, we work in metaverses, we are working across the quantum computing. So all these new technologies we see across, and we see across that there is a relation between all these technologies. Now, if we see across how computing or the traditional technology landscape is available. So we have servers whereby they could be within an on-prem environment or within cloud, for example, AWS or Azure, and there would be many services over there. But at the very core, these are servers, right, with certain CPU and memory that is actually performing certain computation. Then we have networking, which is supporting around it, so that data could be exchanged across and all the cybersecurity element to it that is there. Then we have storage layer, whereby we have certain databases in which we are going to put certain information that is available. So this is how all the systems are storing the data, whether it is CRM, ERPs, or any core banking system, for example, it would have certain database. It would put the data in. Then there is a means for identity as well, that you would do Active Directory authentications or other authentications like Google and Facebook based on single sign-on mechanism to establish who the person is, right? Then we write a lot of applications on top of it. It could be games, it could be analytic systems, it could be ERPs, it could be CRMs, and a lot of software is available for almost everything. But how do we access it? We have a mechanism that we can access it on the web or we can access it on the mobile, but it is more a 2D kind of interface. Right now, we are communicating. I am seeing a laptop screen, and you guys also are seeing some laptop or mobile screen, but it is flat. It is everything in terms of 2D. On the other side, as the technology is evolving across, what we could see is that there is blockchain or a distributed ledger. If we see across somewhere from the databases or storage perspective, that data which is stored in a traditional database is kind of a not temper resistant. Anybody who is admin access or who is able to access those particular servers can modify the data, right? So this is something which distributed ledgers could actually provide like a better service with respect to it. Secondly, if we talk about all these applications that are there, they are taking some input and providing certain output. Now with this generative AI, what can happen? You could ask it to generate the code on the fly, generate the websites on the fly. So a software could be generated across with respect to it. And it has that capability that even if you will instruct it to create an image or to create a 3D object or create certain sound, it is able to generate it with a lot of possibility based on the large language models, right? So it is somehow related to this particular processing. And also smart contracts, which are based on trusted data. That's certain kind of a application workflow code itself as well, right? We have web and mobile whereby we access the data. So spatial computing or metaverse is giving us a 3D way to visualize that particular information across. We have better connections over time with the promise of 5G, and quantum computing is solving or adding a more capability for the processing. That previously we had the CPU and GPUs, but QPUs, which is based on the quantum computing, are going to provide you certain areas of computation which could have effect on the other technologies as well. In a larger ecosystem, right now, what is happening is that humans are interacting with the technology to get the things done. But going forward, because of generative AI, because of the robotics, all these technologies are getting mature. So a world will be there where people would be there as well as there would be devices. IoT devices will also play a role, so they will also require certain form of identity. Robots would be there, they would be working across, so they will also want some kind of an identity. Otherwise, things would not be manageable, right? So what we see is that there is a traditional landscape of technology. We are all used to it. We all work in this particular direction. And then there are newer nascent technologies which are making its impact known, and they are evolving bit by bit. So the question is there a convergence that one technology, as it matures, will it facilitate the other technology? Will it make it mandatory? And will it increase the adoption of the other technology? So this is the question that we are going to ask with this particular presentation. So let's say, what is the benefits that we get from the blockchain? Because a technology itself could be there, but every technology has to have certain benefits, right? That's why it is adopted across. So blockchain provides you a tamper-proof record. It helps you to build the trust. It will eliminate the middleman. It would provide a censorship-resistant record for everything across. That's the promise of the blockchain. Whether you'd say it across as a public blockchain, which is Ethereum, or which is Cardano, or a number of other chains that are available, for example, Polygon, or it could be an enterprise level private permission blockchain using a Hyperledger Fabric. All of them provides this particular same type of benefit. Now we go to the generative AI. It is based on large language models. What are large language models? Is that you pre-train it with petabytes of data, and based on zero-shot learning. And what could happen is that you could ask questions to it, and it is going to give you answers. Secondly, it knows a lot of code. So you give it certain, like for example, requirement, and it can generate the code for you. You can give it certain directions of how to generate an article, or for example, a presentation. It can generate the content for you. You could ask to summarize something, and it could generate a very good summary of it. Or you could ask to define certain image, that there is a boy who is on the moon and is doing this and doing that. It could generate the image because it has a lot of parameters available within that particular model, a lot of learning and memory. So based on that, it could generate all these particular things. So this is what we see as the benefits of generative AI. In the generative AI, there are a lots and lot of models. ChatGPT 3 and 4 are one of them. That is MTNLG available from NVIDIA. There is Palm from Google. There is Falcon 40B from Abu Dhabi Innovation Institute, which is a model from United Arab Emirates. So there are a lot of models with a lot of parameters. So this discipline is evolving as well. Now, in order to work with the models, what happens is that they could be pre-trained models, or you could train it from the very beginning, which is very expensive operation, or you can fine tune based on your data set, or use the normal prompt engineering to generate those particular content. All of these things could be done. The idea to say is that prompt engineering has enabled very kind of not smart people who are not smart with the technology to also imagine and do things which are previously very, very much difficult for everyone, right? They would be able to generate website code. They would be able to generate images. They would be able to generate very good English emails, for example. So it augments them to do a lot of things which were previously very, very difficult in terms of doing those particular things. But that has a problem now. In our current world, what happens when you have a university degree? University give you a paper that this is your degree. You go across to everybody else and say, this is my degree with all the stamps and signatures, which they accept. Okay, it is genuine, right? You take a bank statement, go to the embassy if they require it, and you show them those particular bank statement. You carry passport, you carry visa, you carry identity cards, you carry invoices. All of these are paper documents that you go and show to somebody on the other side. And based on seeing the layout of the content, they decide it would be genuine or it would not be genuine. Maybe there is a signature on top of it based on which you decide it is genuine or it is not genuine. But imagine what happens is that this LLMs, since they can generate the content for a 5 or 6 year old, it would not be very difficult as people would generate LLMs to generate the documents. Very, very like realistic documents, so that it is very much possible to fake anything. You could fake visas, right? Because it's just a paper. So on top of it, you could generate by giving the instruction that, okay, this is this particular person. He wants a visa of this particular country, and this particular content generation of the LLM can generate it. It is now possible, and within the dark web, people will start to do it as well. And this could be done as a massive level. So this is a threat which was not previously there, but this advancement in generative AI will bring this particular threat and make this much more easier for any individual to fake any kind of documents. Second thing is, if we see across organization are running softwares, right? Softwares are based on code, and most of the people use open source code, right? Large language models are good at also detecting security vulnerabilities. And most of the open source code, you have these particular repositories available everywhere. It's a matter of time. People will have more advanced tool to navigate across all the source code repositories and find out vulnerabilities within those and how to exploit that. So cyber security, which you are using currently, the number of threats would increase because it is much more easier for people now to get into this particular things. You do not need to be an hacker. You just need to prompt engineer and you would be able to find out a lot of vulnerabilities more easier. It's a matter of time. It is just something which is going to happen because of the advancement of this particular generative and open AI. And by the way, 80% of the software used in the world is one way or the other open source. And there was a logging J4 logs vulnerability sometimes back. It was based in an open source code and it affected everyone across the world, right? So imagine that particular thing that a lot of people have now would have access if somebody trains a LLM model to explore or exploit the software vulnerabilities. Similarly, there could be other things as well which would be possible. I could get a call in which I am my actual video is there available, which is talking about seeking some help to you. Maybe you know me. So you will say, okay, I have called you and I am asking for help. Maybe I'll say, transfer me this much money, and you could be easily scammed. So scamming will become much more easier. Phishing emails could be much more easier. That more realistic looking mails could be created and sent to people. So this area of attack surface will also increase. And even news, we would be confused because there would be many automated systems who would use generative AI to generate very, very fake looking information across. So generative AI will advance, but it would keep everybody confused. There won't be any trust. So the only technology that could save you is blockchain, because it's a distributed ledger, uh, and data stored across multiple nodes. Nobody can tamper that particular record because of the capabilities of the blockchain. So what it can provide two things: tamper-proof records, right? So with this, what is going to happen? Nobody can generate fake documents anymore, because if they generate a fake document, it would not be traced back to a blockchain record. And that's how you would be able to find out that it's a fake record. It's not a original record. Secondly, identity. Every machine, every human would have some kind of an identity which is tied to the blockchain. There are many kind of a solution. For example, WorldCoin is trying to come up with one solution for this trusted identity. There is a Hyperledger Indy that is there for this trusted identity. There is another blockchain called Sovereign, which is there for this particular trusted identity. But this problem of trusted self-sovereign identity, which is a blockchain subdomain, that is going to help, because it is going to prove that everything that is generated based on uh, like large language model, does it trace to an individual or a machine, or is it actually a fake, or it is real? So advancement in open AI will make mandate that everything has some kind of a backing on blockchain. Otherwise, there would be a lot of confusion. Existing systems can't just work in that particular environment. So as we see, the more generative AI matures, it makes blockchain a necessity rather than any other technology. So they have a kind of a correlation. So this is how both these technologies are going to converge. Similarly, blockchain has this interesting element of smart contract, ERC20 tokens, or like, for example, NFT tokens, or any other type of contracts that needs to be written across. Large language models are good at language. So between parties, they will just make things in human terms by giving certain plain English, and at the back, a smart contract is deployed on the blockchain. So this is somehow generative AI is advancing the discipline of blockchain. So we call things as smart contract, where we require coders. In a few years' time, we would not be, because everything would be happening based on a human language. And anyway, if anybody has any question, they can ask in the middle as well. So now the next thing is, if we take across IoT. So what IoT has brought across is that based on its protocol, a number of devices could be available across. But again, we need to actually ensure what is the identity of device that is connecting to my ecosystem. Is it putting the correct data, or it has some tempered data, or is it a rogue device that is connecting to my network? Because I cannot then trust what data it is providing across. IoT devices need to talk with each other as well to see what one IoT device can do, so that the other IoT device can take services from that particular device. And what is the role and responsibilities of those particular IoT device within the whole ecosystem. There are IoT infrastructure available. But again, as things would improve, and because of the generative AI as well, what is going to happen? Blockchain has to become a trust layer for the IoT, so that a larger IoT ecosystem, a larger open IoT ecosystem can happen. So what is happening over here? IoT devices could use blockchain layer as a smart contract to negotiate terms among them, so that they can perform some kind of a payment, or they can perform some kind of a service. IoT devices would use identity on the blockchain to authenticate with their servers that they are the correct devices and they are part of this particular network. So that's authenticity would come from the blockchain. So in the longer run, that has to happen. Otherwise, you would not be able to have bigger ecosystem of the IoT devices. Similarly, any data that it is transmitting to the server or to the other devices, it can put a hash onto the blockchain to indicate the authenticity of that particular data. So this is how IoT discipline is going to converge with a blockchain, which is also not necessarily mandated for using the blockchain, but blockchain can facilitate to grow that IoT ecosystem. Similarly, IoT devices need to be programmed in a way, right? But large language models are good at understanding any human language. So that way, when people will interact with devices, they will just use normal language, right? We have started to see things like Siri, and for example, on the Amazon, you have those particular devices as well. But what would happen is that they support certain syntax, and then you need to spell out Siri or things like that. But large language models will make that particular process easier. You can speak in any language, and you can speak in any specific order in very human realistic way, so that the devices will start to understand. So this is how IoT discipline will take the advantage of both the large language models and the generative AI, as well as the blockchain technology. So we can see that IoT can use generative AI as an interaction layer, and blockchain as a kind of a trust layer. So this is how the technology is going to converge in that particular direction. The next element that I'll like to say is about the quantum computing. So quantum computing is a new discipline. We can say it is a kind of a infrastructure that is there for doing the computing, but it uses certain superposition, which is a quantum phenomena, to act on a large pieces of data, right? So this is how this technology is there. And the processing unit that is available, like we have CPUs and GPUs, in the quantum computing, it is called quantum processing unit. Now, quantum technology is still in innovation trigger phase in the Gartner hype cycle. So, like other things, generative AI or blockchain have passed the tough of delusionment layer, which is standing here. But quantum computing is in the initiations only, because there are errors and there are a lot of things. It is expensive as well. But again, with technology, we know that if there is a path to something, things over the time would become cheaper, and things would be much more mature over time. Now, again, quantum computing, we cannot say that it would replace the CPUs or the GPUs. Quantum computing can solve certain problems. They cannot solve other problems with the CPU is good at or the GPU is good at, right? GPU could be good for the graphic rendering, which we use for the metaverse and for the gamings. So that's there, but that's not something which it can do. But there are other problems that which quantum computing can solve in much more better manner. Now, what are those particular things which could be done by quantum computing that can assist generative AI? So, generative AI has this large language models that required to be trained. With the advancement in the quantum computing, the training times to generate those AI model would be faster. It means that you can train on more data, you can train on more possibilities. You could build larger data sets on which you could train that particular organization. Let me try to see where it is coming. Okay, 1 minute. Yeah. So you could handle larger data set for those particular training. It means your model could have much more number of parameters that you have now. In terms of parameters, we say 50 billion parameters, 40 billion parameters, 70 billion parameters. So this is how what we achieve with traditional computing. With quantum computing, this bar will go quite much high. There are optimization techniques that are used in AI. They could be become better, and new AI architectures will evolve as the quantum computing will evolve. So in a way, quantum computing is going to make generative AI, give it a push so that it could become much more powerful going forward. Now, again, at the same time, when quantum computing is going to make generative AI powerful, which we saw previously, that it is going to confuse everybody because of the trust factor. And our promise for that trust factor was on blockchain. Now, another element is that most of the blockchain relies on public-private key pairs, which is public key cryptography, right? So both our traditional ecosystem, I go to a website, there is a TLS certificate, right? It is based on public key cryptography. All the identity and PKI ecosystems based on which the identities are currently issued by the government, if it is a digital ID, it is based on this PKI infrastructure, right? Quantum computing can, because it is good with NP hard problems, so the prime factorization problem, which is something based on which this PKI infrastructure is dependent on, it can do in a matter of minutes. So it means that the traditional security that everybody tells that, okay, public-private key cryptography, it is in big danger if this particular quantum computing makes a big breakthrough. But similarly, the blockchain layer, it also relies in most of the cases on public-private key cryptography. So again, our trust that was to be hedged for the generative AI based on the blockchain, that could be in another problem. So this is how these technologies are related. But people have come up with blockchains which are having quantum resistant encryptions as well, right? So in a longer run, if quantum computing matures, those quantum resistant encryption techniques, that is going to actually be much more favorable. So this is how in terms of convergence, things or will change in the blockchain world as quantum computing will mature. Now, if we see the relationship, what is happening with the maturity of quantum computing, it is going to make generative AI more powerful, which has to rely onto the blockchain layer. And at the same time, it is going to make the existing PKI obsolete, because the way we do the current trust, that's not going to happen anymore because it would be very, very easy to break. So that's why quantum resistant blockchain is only going to save us. Identity and the trust otherwise would not be possible, right? So in a way, maturity in quantum computing will increase the sophistication of generative AI as well as the sophistication of blockchain. So these technologies are related with each other, and convergence will happen ultimately for three of the technologies. Now, the next technology that we are talking about is about spatial computing and metaverse. So what happens is that right now we are used to this websites and mobile application, but we interact in a 2D space with gears coming like Oculus gears or the Vision Pro coming from Apple, and a lot of companies coming into this immersive experience. At the same time, 3D games that are even coming on the browser that are enhancing the experience in which we are actually looking at things, right? And also what is happening within those particular worlds, that based on this conversation engine that is available from large language models, anybody can talk in any language and then they could understand. So you don't need to type with the keyboard anymore. You can speak in a virtual world that is generated across for you. Now, what is going to happen in this particular case? You have this particular 3D worlds, but as quantum computing is going to give a boost to generative AI, computers can generate much more realistic looking fantasy world quite much easily, right? Right now, using the generative AI, you can just ask and it can generate an image. But when 3D data set is trained to all these particular models, then they could generate on the fly a 3D fantasy world, which is completely based on the language, right? You give an input and it is going to generate an experience. You could say, I want to watch a movie of 30 minutes in a cinema hall, which is a 3D movie with dinosaur walking around me. So a fantasy world is generated on the fly on which you could interact and you could do the things. So that becomes a possibility. Accessing those particular experiences will require a lot of bandwidth as well. With the advancement in 5G, that is going to be possible. And since you are inside a virtual world and you want to have information from the real world, so this IoT devices are able to generate the data and send it into this virtual world where I could see a digital twin within this particular metaverse, right? So these technologies are in a sense related and they will work together into the future, right? But again, one thing that trust has to come from somewhere. So to all of these layers, the trust is being provided by this blockchain layer for identity and tamper proofing of data. So that's how everything converges together. The technologies that we are talking about in just a few years, we will see an ecosystem based on these particular technologies only. So that brings us to this. Welcome to the Matrix. Because computer generated world, which are fantasy worlds, which has kind of trust, which has data from the actual real world using IoT devices, rendered by quantum computing, everything would be available. So the same concept as the Matrix. So in order to summarize what is happening across that, we have this networking layer. So it would embrace more of 5G and IoT devices within it. We have existing servers with the CPUs and GPUs that would come along with the quantum computing. So this particular stack is going to change. Storage, nobody will do in a centralized database because it is too prone to actually attacks or tampering or faking. That's why the normal way to store the data would be a blockchain ledger. Identity, no other systems could come across. You have to ensure identity using a blockchain layer. Applications that are available, they would be there would be no programmers that would be writing those particular applications. Based on the requirement, generative AI would be able to uh, generate things on the fly in virtual worlds, which is based on spatial computing and metaverse. So the way we access or know technology, the landscape, which is the traditional technology landscape, will be disrupted very, very much in a few years based on the combination of all these technologies working together to have this particular grand, massive convergence, whereby humans and bots all could live together in harmony.